Colorado, we continue on our week one previews, part ones here. Tonight we go to the great state of Colorado as Georgia Tech is coming into town in week one to face off against the Colorado Buffs. When you look at this game with all of the differences between both of these teams from last season, your thoughts?
This is one of the few instances, Blake, that I'm not going to be able to provide a direct pick at the current moment on FanDuel. Georgia Tech. You never get picks when we do these segments. Georgia Tech is favored on FanDuel -3.5 in this game, despite going on the road to Boulder for this matchup. That, to me, by the way, is the first big piece with this. I brought up during the previews for Georgia Tech and Colorado that Georgia Tech, as of late, has not had success traveling that far west. I don't believe that they've won a game in some time having to travel as far as to going to Boulder to play a game. Both of these teams, to me, have advantages that set them up to win. Jamal Haynes and Haynes King, dynamic rushing duo in a situation for them to get hot like they did against Florida State. Trelane Maddox is a guy that I was reading about that sounds like is going to be another player in the mix running the ball, a big body, 6'2" kid who could be fantastic. And it's also worth noting, and I know it was just last year, but Cam Miller, North Dakota State's quarterback, had 81 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's not as good of an athlete as Haynes King. I'm keeping track, though, of how this receiver room for Georgia Tech of Eric Rivers and Malik Rutherford, and it sounds like Isaiah Canyon is doing some great things. It could be the next big guy up. They lost Eric Singleton, but this receiver room is still loaded, going up against a very quality Colorado secondary led by DJ McKinney, who very well could be a first-round pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. I think that with those balances and the hope that Colorado runs the ball more effectively with Kaden Salter, this will be a hard-fought battle. I think the real tipping point is what does the defensive line do for Colorado going up against what's been a pretty reliable and physical offensive line presence for Georgia Tech. You're going to need some big games from some unexpected names if you want to be able to step up and stop this rushing attack. That, to me, is the biggest starting point for this conversation.
Joe, I think this game is simple as football becomes. Georgia Tech is not a team in the last 2 years that if you're not physical up front, that you can lay down against. You went out, if you're Colorado in the portal, and got a lot of big names along your offense and defensive line. You went at left guard and got Xavier Hill that a lot of SEC teams wanted. You went out and got Jaheim Otis at defensive tackle. Okay? Last year, I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. You're 130th in the country in rushing. Kaden Salter very well may be able to provide you with a situation where he's a big part of this run game and it really gets going. However, Joe, Colorado's biggest struggles have come up front. Let's call it what it is. Their offensive line and defensive lines have not played up to par of where they needed to be for them to have the success that I think ultimately people wanted Colorado to have. Georgia Tech is a physical, downhill, cutthroat team built off of the culture of Brent Key. You want to find out what your culture is about? You want to find out if you got a tough locker room and some tough-ass dudes? Georgia Tech is the number one team that you could go up against. Joe, we saw, Eric Singleton or not, we saw Haynes King. We saw Hayes. We saw all of these dudes go into a game against Georgia last year at the end of the regular season and literally go punch for punch. I get it. Eric Singleton's not there. A couple of defensive guys are no longer there, but their core nucleus, offensive line, defensive line, linebacker, their core nucleus of dudes up front, Joe, they return. And the question that I have in this game in week one, I'm going to be glued to this one because I think that Georgia Tech's going to come out there swinging. Did you hear Brent Key's press conference, by the way, this week?
No, I didn't catch it.
Called their practice, and I'm quoting, shitty. We ain't no good. We ain't practicing good. We ain't got good players. No, I didn't say good players. He goes, we practice like shit. We're going to get beat. No, I've heard coaches do this before. It means he knows they're going to be damn good and they're getting him after it. Here's the thing with Haynes King. We picked fun of Haynes along the way on this show. Last year, he did the biggest thing that nobody anticipated him doing. He went from 14 interceptions to 4. And I understand he was hurt. Joe, he led them to some serious wins and to overtime against Georgia. He was the main reason, while being hurt, that Miami got knocked off by them. Joe, there were 3 fourth-down runs while being hurt that he came in there and put his head down and got first downs. Colorado's culture has been built on having some superstars and electrifying players, and they do right now, and no one can deny that. It's a completely different style of team and completely different style of culture of the two teams that are facing off. And, Joe, I'm just going to tell you this. If you don't bring your lunch pail, Georgia Tech is going to punch you right in your mouth. And I got to be real with you. They will play ball control. We all know this. Joe, you better not play around with them. I got to be real with you. I know we're basing a lot of this off of what they did a season ago, and they have some big departures. Not up front a lot. They got some, but not a lot. You lay down against them, they're going to keep coming at you every single play, and you better be ready for it. I
think that there's a good point to be had there.
I know.
It felt like it felt like they got gutted this offseason, but there is a lot of truth to a lot of underrated players that are coming back. They've got a very solid linebacker core as well. They are going to do a lot of the things that North Dakota State did. A lot of similar styles, a lot of misdirection in the run game, a lot of just trying to run down your throat. But the difference is that Georgia Tech's roster is more talented than North Dakota State's. I currently still, though, lean in favor of Colorado. The trip is difficult. The altitude is difficult to adjust to. And as we've said before, this is the deepest roster that Deion Sanders has had at Colorado. It might not have the big name stars in Travis Hunter and in Shedeur Sanders, but you're still bringing back one of the best corners in the country in DJ McKinney. Omarion Miller is a player who could step up and be highly productive. This whole receiver room has depth. And I think that their defensive line room has underrated players as well outside of Jaheim Otis, who we've talked about. Quincy Wiggins and Anquan Barnes is who I meant to reference. Barnes is getting hyped up by Warren Sapp this week on what I was reading in one of the practice reports that I found. I think that there could be an opportunity here, as you're talking about. If you're trying to set the tone as a program, against Georgia Tech is where you're going to do it. Last year, Florida State did the complete opposite. They overlooked their opponent. They did not realize that they were going to get punched in the mouth. And when they got knocked on their ass, they didn't get up. I think that Colorado is going to have a lot different of a tone. And I think that we saw last year that they did an effective job against North Dakota State of rallying and finishing. There's going to be a degree of explosiveness that I think that they have a receiver that can set them up for success to beat this Georgia Tech secondary. That, to me, on the flip side of things, I think is where the Colorado advantage is with Kaden Salter if he can get into a rhythm.
Let's flip to Colorado there because you bring up a good point. I know what I want to say. I don't know how to say it because where does Colorado ultimately want to go? I'm assuming they want to contend for a Big 12 title. And if you do that, you're contending for a playoff spot. So, all right, so let's go there. Again, it's the same take, but from a different angle. Joe, you better be able to go out there and run the football. I mean, it is a bottom line fact. I think that at skill, whether it be receiver, DB, etc., Colorado by far is more talented than Georgia Tech.
Wait. I wouldn't say by far because Jamal Haynes is incredibly one of the best running backs in the country.
Sure. But if you're talking about skill.
Actually, I push back on that too because
Braylon,
I think
you have you just said that they have a potential first round corner. Haynes is not going in the first round.
That is true, but I think that this receiver room there's not like a huge gap. The receiver room for Georgia Tech is very underrated, and I would say it's a slight step below what Colorado has, just a slight step. Not much separation.
You got to replace Eric Singleton first for me to do that. I just think they're better at skill. I think they're far and away more athletic. Way more far than athletic. Regardless if we agree or disagree on the semantics of that part. Joe, you can't keep playing the way you're playing offensively. It's not going to lead you to the success against a team like this. When you're going to have to throw some counter shots in the run game. It is a bottom line. You're going to have to control some things. Defensively, look, I think Jaheim Otis is good. I think their front seven will be a lot better. I do think it's the best overall roster that they've had. There also comes a point in time where, look, I know that you're facing off against a physical team. I kind of got to see you do it. You can go out there high flying and trying to do what you've been doing, and that's fine. I don't know, man. You're going to have to – look, do they have the talent to do it? Do they have a talent to be a Big 12 contender? Excuse me. Yes. I kind of just need to see them do it first because you had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback or Heisman Trophy winning DB/receiver, utility guy, and a lot of people who thought you had a quarterback that should have been a first-round pick. Joe, it's a lot to replace.
Yeah.
But here's the X factor for me. I say all that to say this. I think Kaden Salter is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the country. I do. I think what happened last year with him is everybody left him at liberty. And so we forgot about what he did in 2023. We forgot how athletic he was. We forgot how many rushing yards he had. We forgot how accurate at times he was. Then his entire offense left. Hugh Freeze is gone. His entire team's gone. His number one receiver's gone. His number one receiver's at Miami. Was at LSU, now at Miami. Everybody left him. He couldn't leave because of academic reasons. And now all of a sudden people are saying, well, Kaden Salter had a bad year. He had nobody. Joe, the reason I lean Colorado is their new quarterback. And I believe that much in Kaden Salter. I think overall, as a team, he could lead them to better success versus what they did a season ago.
That's also part of this for me. I'm a big believer in Kaden Salter, and this is going to be a real opportunity for him to prove the talent that he brings to the table. Does he come out of the gate swinging? Does he come out on fire? Does he have an amazing performance? And then we're buzzing on Friday night about Colorado's got a next-rate quarterback taking over for Deion Sanders, and Kaden Salter's his name. I want to just bring up one point that you just brought up there about how the play style has to be different. I think that especially applies against Georgia Tech. The Big 12 does not have teams of this style. Last year, and you mentioned this a second ago, this specific game, Georgia Tech's biggest win, one of their biggest wins last season, was against Miami. They beat Miami because Miami could not control the ball. They could not, and this was their fault the entire season, they could not drain the clock. They could not just run the ball and lean on the run game. They kept trying to take shots and to outscore them, and it failed.
I don't know if they couldn't, they wouldn't.
Well, both. Let's go with both.
Okay, fair.
I would like to see Colorado in this game not fall for the Georgia Tech trap. And the trap is taking the bait of thinking that you can outscore them. You definitely can. You beat Georgia Tech in a shootout, and they know that. They're going to try and slow the game down as much as possible. They're going to try and control every possession as much as possible. All it takes in a situation like that, when they're running the ball and slowing things down, it takes one mistake, one turnover, and that's how they win. So they did against Miami. So they did against Florida State. That to me is like another big swinging point for this game, Blake, is that we need to see a different approach. You don't have to do what Deion Sanders did. Your offensive line should be better than last year.
I think they are.
Salter, yeah, I think that it is. And I think that Kaden Salter, with this deep running back room, or at least quality running back room, will be able to actually orchestrate an effective rushing attack. From what I've seen and from what some Colorado folks have DM'd me, it sounds like there's going to be a completely different approach to the rushing attack. That to me, I think is really, really critical.
Let me throw out one thing to you. There was a team last year that clipped Georgia Tech early in the season that had the same level of style as what we've seen from Colorado. It's Syracuse. Kyle McCord in that game, if you remember, I think it was on a Friday night, went 32 of 46 for 381 yards and 4 touchdowns. Here's the problem with that. Joe, they had 15 carries by Allen for 83 yards. They ran the ball for more yardage than Georgia Tech. Even though they threw the ball around so much, they were effective in the second half by killing the clock. They held on to the football for 37 minutes in that game, did Syracuse. It wasn't Syracuse's game to do that early in the season. It's not what they did. They wanted to throw the ball all over the place. What did they do in the second half? They literally just kept handing the ball off because they knew Georgia Tech would get in their own way, and they weren't explosive enough to throw the ball enough that if they got out early and kind of killed the clock, got third down conversions, they were 10 of 17, they were going to win this thing. So I would just say there is a style that you can still have your own core principles, but the main fact of the teams that Georgia Tech got in battles with, like Miami, to your point, and guess who else? Georgia. What was our biggest complaint with Georgia and Georgia Tech last year? Start running the football. You were tweeting in all caps. Give the ball to Etienne. They ultimately win when they give him 4 straight carries and he gets in on 3 of them. Joe, I just ended with this. You better change your style offensively to some degree. You got to start running the football. If they do, I think they're going to win. But Georgia Tech's going to come in there and punch you in the mouth. It's their culture too. So could this be a match early? And listen, stopping Haynes King, there are better teams in Colorado that couldn't. We've seen better teams than Colorado that could not slow down Haynes King.
Right. So
those are the two things. I think they can do it, but man, it's a tough team to battle.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to give my FanDuel pick just yet for this one. I'm going to wait until next week.
We ain't got to.